Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel today. I will be talking about residency funding, residency transfer, switching residency like going from preliminary or transitional to categorical residencies as well. I will also explain what is transitional, preliminary and categorical residencies as well. Here is this timestamp for topics included in this video. Feel free to skip to the part you are interested in. For this video, I have used multiple resources. I will link them all down below in the description box. And here is the intro. Categorical track. This is the track where you start your first year or intern year and complete the required years for that specialty and come out as a graduate. For example, if you are into an internal medicine categorical program, you finish all the 3 years at the same program and graduate from the program as a board eligible internal medicine physician. Next is a transitional and preliminary track residency. Before I move into transitional and preliminary track, let me tell you who applies for these programs. There are specialty residencies such as anesthesia, dermatology, neurology, physical medicine and rehabilitation. For those and some other specialty residency training, either you match into categorical track or preliminary/transitional year. As I mentioned previously, if you match into categorical track, you start your residency at the program and finish all required years of training at the same place and you graduate as a board eligible physician of that specialty. The other option is where you first start your first year in preliminary or transitional track, finish 1 year and then move on to advanced year at a different institution. Now let me explain difference between transitional and preliminary track. Transitional track. This is 1 year track. Most of the transitional programs are run by internal medicine residencies. In the transitional track, total of 24 weeks of following rotations are required: general surgery, pediatrics, emergency medicine, OBGYN, and critical care, which must include 4 weeks of emergency medicine. And 8 weeks of general medicine are also required. 124 hours of ambulatory care in either primary care, OBGYN, or surgery, and 8 weeks of mandatory electives. And remaining weeks can be decided by the programs. Preliminary track. A 1 year track, but the main difference between transitional track and preliminary track is preliminary track is either preliminary medicine, preliminary surgery, or preliminary pediatrics. What does that mean? What that means is if you match in preliminary medicine, your schedule will be the same as internal medicine first year intern. Same goes for preliminary pediatrics and preliminary surgery. Their schedule will be like pediatrics and surgery intern in the respective order. And on the other hand, in the transitional track, you have less medicine floors and more electives of your choice. That's why transitional track is in very much demand compared to preliminary track programs. Now let's talk about residency funding, which you guys all came for. Who funds the residency program? CMS, which is a government agency who administers Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is a healthcare insurance program for people above 65 and ESRD and disabled people. Medicaid is a health insurance for low-income families financed jointly with the state government. Most of the residency programs get funds from Medicare, but in few states, Medicaid also provides funding for the residency programs. Now, which program gets paid? Medicare will pay for the specialty training which leads to certification issued by American Board of Medical Specialty, ABMS. So what is ABMS? There are 22 medical boards which are part of ABMS. For example, ABIM, ABA, and ABS. ABIM is a board of internal medicine, ABA for anesthesia, and ABS for surgery. Medicaid will pay for all those training in some way or another. Surprising fact, did you know some of the super specialty don't get paid by Medicaid? For example, transplant fellowship. since they do not meet CMS definition of approved by American Board of Medical Specialty. There are no board examination after transplant fellowship. In those cases, hospital pays for most of the specialized training. That's why only big university hospitals have transplant fellowship. And mainly those funds come from generous donors. Now let's talk about how residency programs get paid by CMS. There are two types of payments made to residency programs: direct graduate medication education, which is DGME for short, and IME, indirect medical education payment. Now let's talk about DGME first. DGME is a payment to cover expenses of resident salary, faculty salary, salary of GME office administrator, accreditation fees, accreditation advisor, etc. In 2016, Medicare paid a total of $3.79 billion in direct graduate medical education funds. That amount that hospital receives, it varies from hospital to hospital based on that hospital's inpatient Medicare beneficiary and some other variables too. Now let's talk about formula of DGME. DGME equals to PRA into Medicare share into FTE. Now, what is PRA? PRA is per resident amount, which was decided in 1983, and then it gets adjusted per inflation every year. Now Medicare share, for example, if you have 100 patients bed hospital and 70 of them are Medicare patients, then the Medicare share for that residency program is 70%. Now FTE. FTE stands for full-time equivalent. FTE is not the same as resident count. Your program can have 10 residents, but FTE for the program can be 10, 9.5, or 8, or any other number depending on residents' past residency involvement. Let me explain what is FTE. And this is very important to understand for those candidates who joined preliminary track of any specialty and then applying for categorical track. For example, if there is internal medicine resident who matched into categorical year, which takes 3 years to get board eligible, then that resident will count as 1 FTE for 3 years. Every other year after that will be counted as 0.5 FTE. What do I mean every year after that? I'm talking about fellowship. In the fellowship, FTE for each fellow is counted 0.5. That means fellowship program get less funding compared to residency program. Then why hospital would open fellowship program? Because work done by fellows already brings high revenue to the program, which can compensate for lost money from Medicare. Now let's go back to FTE. FTE gets decided by initial residency period, IRP for short. IRP gets decided by Medicare once you match for the first time, regardless of track or specialty. If you match into preliminary track without matching into advanced year, then your IRP will not be decided yet. For example, there is a resident who matches into preliminary medicine, their IRP is not decided yet. So for that year, they will be counted as 1 FTE. But next year, the same candidate matches into categorical internal medicine residency as a first year, then their IRP will be counted for 3 years in total, which will also include a previous 1 year as well, which they did as a preliminary or transitional year. And now in their categorical program, their first and second year will be counted as 1 FTE, and their final year as a third year will be counted as 0.5 FTE. So that institution will get a little bit less payment for that particular resident from the CME. That's why you will hear from many people that matching into preliminary and then applying for categorical year is very hard, sometimes not possible, but it's partially true and false. If you are a visa requiring candidate, ECFMG will not sponsor your J1 visa if you did your preliminary track and then matching for categorical year as a first year resident. Your best bet is to pick up the phone and call ECFMG and get your questions answered before you take any such decision. Many institutions will prefer candidates who already had a training for 1 year to join their institution as a first-year intern, which will be better for that program since they will not have to train that candidate as much as the other candidates. I know few residents who did preliminary track and matched at the same institution as a first-year categorical internal medicine resident. Again, this is not a professional advice, so do your own diligent research before taking any action based on this video. Now let's go back to funding. IME, Indirect Medical Education, is an additional payment to the teaching hospital to reflect the higher patient care cost of teaching hospital compared to non-teaching hospital. Now you would ask, why is that the case? For example, in teaching hospital, there might be more lab work ordered by residents compared to the attending. Basically, additional patient care cost related to teaching activities. Also, when you have a residency program, you have to provide more services like cardiac, neuro services, and additional technology as well. When you are training residents, there will be more tests ordered causing less efficiency. It will also increase the length of stay as well. Now let's talk about IME formula. Easy formula for that is IME equal to DRG into IME adjustment factor. Just to make it easy to understand, think DRG as a diagnosis based on which patient was admitted to the hospital. DRG is like standard cost set by Medicare to treat certain condition. For example, acute MI, discharge alive without major comorbidity, has a length of stay of 1.8 and national average payment of $4,274.25. Now IME adjustment factor, it's complicated. I'm just gonna write it down over here, where R stands for hospital's ratio of residents to beds to determine intensity of teaching occurring at that hospital, and the multiplier C is set by Congress in 2015, which is 1.35. Now when you have a residency program, your DRG payment will be multiplied by IME adjustment factor and hence more money for the hospital. Because of this, it encourages teaching hospitals to provide more critical services to cover more DRG, benefiting both hospital and residents. There is a whole list of DRG listed on the CMS website. If you are curious to find out more, check it out. Now you will have a question that who sponsors pediatric programs then, since their training is not associated with Medicare patients. Pediatric residency programs are funded by the Children's Hospital's Graduate Medical Education, CHGME for short. And this is it for the video. Let me know in the comment section if this video was helpful for you and what are the other topics you would like to know more about. Till then, goodbye.